Bonjour Watcher, this is Johnny Mega 45 and welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia. In the last episode, some shit happened, yeah. Now, Yumiko-Chan is with her mother Misako at the raining, which is both of them are at the rooftop, so we're going to see what's wrong with her mother now. Halfway through the sentence, I noticed something lying on the ground at the very edge of my peripheral vision. It was flapping around in the wind. News magazine. I had a feeling I had seen it before not that long ago. In fact, that cover, that tasteful painting, the work of a well-known artist, got headlines set in the restrained professional font. She has read it. That's why she's wandering around, thinking how she's going to kill herself. The magazine contains the articles flying at my mother's face. My hands lay on the straight off her shoulder. I staggered backward, barely staying on my feet. Why had this happened? Why did everything have to fall apart? Just when we were finally starting to move forward. Why was my mother standing there soaking wet? Why did she have that blank expression on her face? Any question bubbled to the surface of my mind. None of them had answered. They just sat there suspended in my mind, stagnating until they petrifying into a pool of solid blood. My mother fixed her lifeless eyes on mine. I was stuck to the first time for as long as I could remember that mother had looked me straight in the face. So that was without doubt the worst possible way for that chain to be broken. What? There was no light in Mom's eyes. She spoke for a question, but there was nothing like actual curiosity behind it. It was a voice of a machine. I wanted desperately to convince myself she was joking. But no matter how I tried, I couldn't make myself believe it. The evidence before my eyes was simply too powerful. Myla, Danny. Mom's face was paler than white, and in the center of her white eyes, there were two bottomless dark wells where her pupils had been. Those tiny spots of black seemed more bright and more profound than the black sky stretching out endlessly above us. I was standing on the edge of the abyss, and I was afraid if that had stopped, I might fall into those pools of darkness and disappear. But I couldn't stop staring. I couldn't open my eyes from the thing that was trying to swallow me whole. After all, she was the only person left in the world who ever acknowledged my existence. I called out to her, praying the word might pull her back from across the chain that separated us. But it was too white. My voice was too weak. I was too weak. I shrunk away just one step. My feet slid backward across the wet roof. And then for just a moment, fast I thought my body was floating. Disoriented by a sharp impact to my backside, I didn't realize that I'd been pushed out of the way until I saw the doctor moving past me.
早く他の患者に見つからないようにベッドへ。
はい。
As I sat down on the wet concrete, they took my vehicle iron mom in their arms. They were carrying her off like an oversized girl away from me to something I didn't know. Pushing myself off the ground, screaming I ran towards her. I didn't make it 3 steps before another touch caught me. In her arms.
お母さんを連れて行かないで。大丈夫よ、ユミコさん。大丈夫だから。いや、どこに連れて行くの。やめて。
I said about the battery of the battery up there. Roll wheels in the air. Rolling out the depths of the earth, demolishing everything in its path. That sound like a massive boulder coming with that relentless lay across the world, merged with the steam before my eyes and drove itself violently onto my heart. I tried to follow with my eyes as it carried her away. I sprang out one final cry. All the water filled as blood and blood. Those the cameras had splashed at once. For a moment I was dazzled. And by the time my vision returned to normal, there was nothing left to see. She failed to call her mother. get her. No, not quite nothing. On that other road, they do one water lock maybe with me. Because he saw by now better matter away, including into eligibility. I know all the truth, because they would have disappeared so easily. My broken mother was gone. The doctor was smiled and told me she would be leaving the hospital was gone. I was absolutely alone. I crumbled where I stood. My knee hits the ground first, then my hands, then my face. The wet concrete was pleasantly cold against my cheek. Maybe I lay down here long enough, I will melt away and disappear just like that, just like the magazine. The ground was frozen, my body was hot. I had used everything I had. I was empty. I figured out on the very idea of moving. The merciless mental hit to pour down me, jack and break, even though it was night. The vicious stuff wanted to pull around me, creeping out my body as if to swallow me whole. Sometimes I hate that this country has 4 seasons. Just when I finally started to forget, an autumn wind reminds me of a whispering salt. Winter sky brings back cold and lonely memories. And in summer when the sudden evening storms arrive, I torn apart with every clap of thunder. Again and again until there's nothing left. 1 year after my mother relapsed, things have quieted down. The commotion at the hospital created a bit of stir around the town, but it didn't take long for the talk to trickle to a halt. For one thing, the main character in the story was no longer a resident. Even our cold-hearted country gossips seemed hesitant to turn a gravely ill woman's conditions into one of their nasty little jokes. I was absent from school for a week after the incident, recovering from the shock and a mild case of pneumonia, but my life eventually returned to its normal rhythm. That would be the superficial summary at least. The trauma of reading that magazine article led to a dramatic downturn in my mother's conditions. She was now suffering from acute memory loss. A physician, my grandparents, my fathers, and me, we were all strangers to Mom now. Everyone she met slipped out of her mind within a minute. These symptoms were far beyond anything a local hospital was equipped to handle, so after the incident, Mom was transferred to a specialized psychiatric institution in North Canton. Ironically enough, that divorce never actually came to pass. Perhaps my father backed off out of concern for his public image, that or it was part of some conditional legal arrangement, I don't know. One thing, however, was perfectly clear: the connection between the Sakake and Kawamoto house has been severe. My two families spent the first months after the incident squabbling by proxy about legal issues and the care of their mutual burdens. In the end, the Sakake covered my mother's medical expenses, but they were no longer providing supplemental support to the Kawamoto family floundering business.
美佐子の件だけは責任を取らせたけど、これで支援もなくなって、どうするつもりですか、あなた。
You stupid grandmother.
つつましくやっていけばなんとかなる。すまんが、しばらくは我慢をしてくれんか。
歴史のある川本の家がこんな粗末な生活をするようになるなんて。しかもあの子の面倒まで見なければいけないなど、こんなバカな話がありますか。
まったく、なぜこんなことになってしまったのかな。
Even long after the matter was settled, my grandparents never seemed to tire of mourning about the unfairness of it all. And of course, as the easiest target of their bitterness, I once again found myself wedged between a rock and a hard place. I had the bare minimum required for a normal life. They always kept our appearance after all, but not a day when I didn't hear sarcastic, scornful words from the shadows. I went to the silent school and returned to a silent home. I lost my refugee. I lost my home. All I could do was suffer quietly. This would be the point where a normal person might go back, but I have been living inside a cage for so long that not even that choice was available to me. There was a time just once when I tried approaching a group of girls with that sort of reputation. The result was pathetic. In their country town, even the delinquents were mindful of appearance. They turned their backs on me and walked away without a word. Shunned even by the lowest on the totem pole. For a long moment, I just stood there and rode to the spot. And then I found myself looking up into the sky. It looked no different from the day I gazed out the window with my mother. Had Mom always been alone? Was that why she spent so much time watching something that's never really changed? Now that I was well and truly isolated, I began to think more about her feelings.
泣くこともできないのね。
It seems like a moment worthy of a little sobbing, but it just wasn't happening. On that day in the rain, I used up all my lifetime supply of tears. All that left was a parching, wiggly husk of a human being. For one long year, I did nothing but watch the sky change slowly above me. But soon enough, I was pulled down into the muddy stream once again. Another flashback. Are you kidding me? It was a little before the start of summer vacation. Our teacher had fallen ill that afternoon. The final lesson was replaced by a study hall, which I spent gazing darkly out a window. The exercise in pure boredom finally complete. I was walking sluggishly down the road towards my grandparents' house, just turning the final corner onto our street. Something was wrong about this picture. A shiny black luxury car was parked along the thickly hedged road in front of our house. The car automatically did own a private automobile. My grandfather apparently had one back in the day when the business was doing well, but it was one of the first things to go when the recession hit. The negotiations with the Saki family had always been held in the business office by the station, so it had hard to imagine what such a car could possibly come. The car come for you. Only the while I joined outside, staring curiously at the car with its thickly thin windows. But after 2 or 3 minutes, a voice called to me from inside our house.
遅かったじゃないの、由美子ちゃん。早く上がって。
I was startled. The friendly attitude was one thing, but it was the very first time since I arrived that my grandmother had called me by my name. She wouldn't have done that without a very good reason. After quickly removing my shirt, I let her usher me into the parlor. It was the first time in a good 4 years that I'd been in that room. And each time I crossed the threshold, 5 men in black suits stood simultaneously and bowing greetings. As I blinked in bewilderment, my grandmother spoke, a strange little smile twisting her face.
ほら、そこに座って。由美子ちゃんが話に入らないと進まないことなんだから。
And with that, she stared me at the head of the table. The dusty air of the rarely used parlor tickled my nose. I looked around me. All 5 of the men had deeply serious expression on their face. To be honest, I want nothing more than to run away.
一体何の話なんですか？こんな急に。
As soon as the question left my mouth, a man seated to my left took control of the conversation.
お父様、榊道明様の命により、由美子様をお迎えに上がりました。
お迎えに？
はい。お父様は昨年の一件で由美子様をとても心配していらっしゃいました。それ。
What on earth was this man talking about? After they incident with Mom, my father had to show up in this house even once. I understand that he had a busy professional life, but he didn't even bother to send a message or place a phone call. Now that they expect me to believe he was worried, now after a full year, ridiculous. It was mystifying. Grandma had even let them in the house, let alone with that simpering grinding on her face. Didn't she understand this was nonsense? But soon I discovered that my grandmother's reactions were perfectly lucid, for reasons that had nothing to do with any of that.
よかったわね、由美子ちゃん。これでいい学校に通えるし、お父様とも一緒に住めるのよ。
いろいろあったが、これからは何の心配もしないで暮らせるんだ。よかったな。
You happy because I left your home, right?
お父様からもまたこの家を助けていただけるそうで、本当によかったわ。
Ah, now I understand. This was a question with no choices. My grandparents had decided to answer beforehand. They were not unilaterally forcing me toward it. I was so profoundly astonished at their naked self-interest that I couldn't even manage any anger. But it's not as if snapping at them would achieve anything in the first place. Remaining with them was probably never really an option.
わかりました。すぐに準備をしてきます。
When I stood out from the scene, my grandmother spoke in a sickening, sweet voice.
あらあら、そこまで急がなくてもいいのよ。榊家の方は明日もまたいらっしゃるというし、それまで。いえ、結構です。今いらっしゃってるのなら、その車に乗っていきます。あら、そうなの？由美子ちゃんがそういうのなら仕方ないわよね、あなた。
ああ、もちろんそうだ。由美子のいいようにすればいいからな。
I was about to ready to vomit. From my grandmother's words, it seems clear that Sakaki had come with a clear offer in hand, my return in exchange for the restoration financial support to the Kawamoto business. My grandparents had considered me a burden from the start, so I imagine they didn't exactly hesitate. It probably felt like selling some piece of junk from the backyard for a huge sum at auction.
汚らしい
How sodic. I tried muttering the words but couldn't manage some conviction. After all, I was scouting around the same sodic web. How could I complain? I wasn't working for my food. I pulled out all the clothes out of my chest of drawers, threw them onto my tatami mat and scowled down at them.
さようなら
I wasn't speaking to my grandparents, the house, or even my mother. It was a farewell to the person who had lived here, idly wasting days after empty days, accomplished nothing but growing older. I spoke those words to confirm a simple fact that Rome was nothing to me. It held nothing to me. One by one, I cut the clothes I wore in the face to shed. What? The expensive-looking children clothes I brought with me. The generic ready-made so clothes my parents had bought me when I didn't my middle school uniform. My face and emotionless mask. I carefully chopped them into tiny pieces.
これで終わり
My preparations were complete. Then with the scrap clothes with both hands, I shoved them right back into my chest of drawers. It took less than a minute to close everything belonging, art supply, and sketchbook into my bag. Just like that, my life in that place was over. I didn't look back. After a stiff, formulaic goodbye to my grandparents, I dropped by my schools for few brief formalities, then began the journey home. Of course, I hadn't seen that home in many years. I have only vague memory of the house itself. I was sincerely happy to be leaving my grandparents behind, but that didn't make me any less uncertain about the new life being thrust on me so abruptly. The car headed north at a high speed, moving from the coastline into the outskirts of the metropolitan. We were heading for the heart of West Tokyo.
あとどれぐらいで着くのですか
An elderly man were introduced inside the street of the clerical department. My father's company was behind the wheel.
車が混んでいなければあと30分もすれば着くかと存じます。
Glancing briefly at his GPS screen, he answered my question in a calm tone.
そうですか
60 kilometers as the crow flies. That was the distance from my grandparents' house to my dad of my father. In the end, my mom had never managed to return to a place less than an hour away by car, and myself was only coming back on someone else's power. I didn't have the slightest idea what was coming next. I wasn't particularly hopeful, but I didn't feel much in the way of despair either. It would be enough if I could just spend my days quietly until I finally became an adult. With that thought, I closed my eyes and waited for the car to arrive at its destination. Just as the chief secretary had told me, we reached my new home about 30 minutes later.
大きい
The house was very different from the patchwork image I had sewn together for fragments of my childhood memories. For a moment, it that I remember. From the outside, the building itself looked like a Western-style mansion straight out of manga. The spacious garden was surrounded by a high wall. The grounds were covered in so many tall, beautiful trees that it could have been a park. I had hazy memory of those things, but after years in the country, their scares and magnificence took me by surprise. But on an emotional level, the sight left me cold. My father's actions were one thing, my obedient return at his whistle was another. No matter how splendid the house might have, when I thought about the foundation it was built on, my thought naturally took a turn for the better.
お母さんと戻ってこられたら
I whispered the words to myself, too softly for the driver taking my luggage from the truck to hear. Passing through a finely wrought metal gate, I returned to the house I spent my first years in. The unit spirit last year was all the more pronounced inside the house itself. As I took off my shoes and looked around the gleaming entrance hall, I heard footsteps approaching from the side passage. Father!
ユミコ、戻ったか。大きくなったな。
It probably would be taking me some time to recognize the person standing in front of me, if not for the recent photograph I did see in the certain magazine 1 year before. Face to face with my father for the first time is what feels like decades. I saw a middle-aged man with a reasonable healthy complexion, but something hint of something like gloom in his eyes.
ただいま戻りました
As I lowered my hand in a polite bow, my father continued in the same cheerful tone.
どうした？声に元気がないじゃないか。車に長い時間乗ったから疲れたのか。
えあの
I was more taken aback than anything else, considering the way he had treated Mom and me until now. His aggressively friendly attitudes were incomprehensible. From what I could remember, my father and I had only spoken barefoot hands of times when I was a child, and certainly never like that. His motives were clear to me, but the sudden attack at intimacy was off-putting. I didn't quite know how to respond to it.
大丈夫です。ちょっとお部屋に戻って休みます。
For a moment, I just wanted to cut the nauseating conversation short.
ああ、わかった。ユミコの好きなようにするといいよ。
失礼します。
With another bow to my father, as I made my way past it, heading to the one part of the house I remember well. My very first place of refuge, the bed in which I had spent so many hours as a young child. I climbed the stairs and found my room without slightest hesitation. Remembering its location so exactly prompted a brief smell of nostalgic emotion, but that soon gave way to the recurring scene of disgust. My memories there were exactly happy in their own right. Honey, the night I entered for the first time in years was so completely changed that I couldn't help raising my voice in surprise. The badly mismatched bed and bed had been cleared away, and their place was a complete arrangement of fancy furniture and pretty little luxury items, exactly the sort of thing that might appeal to a girl of my age.
わざわざ揃えたのかしら。
Even part of the decor seems as if it could have come straight from the set of movie. The room was filled with fragile, ephemeral things. If I thought they disappear like soap bubbles if I actually touched them. Normally they would make me happy, but at the moment it seems a hollow gesture.
お母さん、帰ってきたわよ。
The flashback is very quite long. You guys can cut from it, right? Okay, I'm the episode 8 right now. Thank you for watching my video. My video is just for fun. Don't take heart, brothers and sisters.
セ
Okay?
ーブするわ。
Magic word time. Adios e famosa. Lost Day 2. Why save 2 times? To play safe.